everyone, welcome back to another video. So in the previous episode, I did all of the header fabrication on Dan's Nova project. And today is kind of where the rubber meets the road in terms of the aesthetics of the headers. It's the welding day. So I have all 8 of the primaries. There are 7 of them over on the cart, 1 of them on the table here, but they are all cleaned up. They are all tacked and all fabricated and everything else, and welding is set to commence very shortly. So a couple of notes I wanted to make about the fabrication process that I didn't do a great job of covering in the previous episode. So when I'm building primaries or tubes or anything like this for any parts on a car, I like to do a couple of things. I first like to purge all of my tack welds. You can see in this image right here, this little video segment, the nice clear full penetration tack and how much of a difference does that actually make, you may be asking? Well, it makes a massive difference. If you don't purge the tacks and you manage to tack with enough heat where the weld does get through the piece of tubing or whatever you're working on, well, that creates a spot that has a bunch of nastiness and corrosion and oxidation and things like that. And in my experience, when you go over top of that spot, the weld puddle can do some wild things and it can completely throw off the aesthetics of the weld. Conversely, if you purge the tack welds, well, you create just another little full penetration tack weld if you tack it with enough heat and all of that. And when you travel over top of it with the rest of the weld being purged, well, you don't have any abnormalities or any loss of control with the puddle that way. In addition to purging tacks, another thing that I like to do is, if you see that mark above my thumb, the one right above it, and then that one, center frame right there, those are marks to signify the initial start and the final stop point of the weld. The reason that I have these marked out is because in the orientation that these sit in, this being the passenger side, it'll sit something like this, you'll notice that you can't see any of those marks. And I purposefully hide those initial start-stop points as they kind of end up with, it sounds crude, but a glob of filler rod put onto them. We take this Ink 625 test piece that I had been working on, and we look right there above my thumb. That is one of the initial start and final stop points. And you can see that compared to the uniformity of the rest of the weld, that is immediately out of place. So I don't want to include those in a highly visible portion of each of these primaries. I want them to be hidden so the welds look as uniform and as consistent as they possibly can. Beyond all of that, this is really just another fairly standard welding job here. I'll be back purging everything to be able to achieve true full penetration and clean interiors of all of these welds, and using ER 347 stainless filler rod, which is the correct filler rod selection for 321 stainless that all of these primaries are made out of. And the filler that I'm using is 35,000th diameter. Being that I'm working with tubing, the wall thicknesses are much thinner than pipe, and therefore I step my filler rod diameter down so I'm not quenching the puddle, cooling it off, and causing it to be erratic and all of that due to trying to cram a bunch of filler rod in. And I'm also not running an excess amount of heat to work with the thinner filler rod, so I'm not embrittling this metal any more than I need to. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get these primaries welded up, because once they are welded, that means we can start doing the finish welding and final assembly on these headers and getting the biggest portion of this project wrapped up. All of Dan's primaries are welded together, and I'm very happy with the way that they've came out. So on the right side, I guess we'll make this the dividing line right here. This is the driver's side, and this is the passenger side. You can see the welds came out nicely, nice coloration. They are all back purged, so if you look in there, you can see some of the penetration and the penetration that I showed in the little montage that we just finished. So now that the primaries are welded, the next step is to put the tubes back into their respective sides, their respective banks, tack them in, and then pull those assemblies out in preparation for finish welding. I think that I am going to put 3 primaries in on each side. I'll put number 1, number 2, and number 4 in, and then number 3 will be left out. So that way I leave myself a little bit of additional space down on the inside of the inlet side of each one of the collectors to be able to get the torch in and all of that. And then I can put the number 3 primaries on both sides in place afterwards and weld them in that way. That's at least the game plan that I have at this point in time. So with that being said, let's go tack some headers together, pull them out of the car, and get ready for final finish welding. Just like that, Dan's new headers are all welded together, or at least mostly welded, I should say. Now, the point that they are at right now, all of the main difficult welding is completed, all the fab work is completed, and we're ready to move on to the next step with them. So before I talk about that, let's go ahead and take a look at how these things came out. So I could not be happier with the way that all this came together. We have the head flange welds that are capped with silicon bronze. All of the stainless bros 321 stainless tubing welded up very nicely. The whole things are back purged. The Straight Line Industries billet stainless head flanges really bring everything together. And most importantly, Dan stopped out the other day to take a look at what I've gotten done. He was very happy with the end product, at least right now, what I'm calling the end product, and that made me very happy. So now that the headers are out of the car, we can talk about one of the main design elements that was kind of difficult to show before, and that is this pocket right in here. And both of these headers have a similar pocket. You can see this is the driver's side, this is the passenger side, and driver's side has its pocket. Passenger side has its pocket, albeit a little bit larger due to the routing that I had to take with the #1 primary to clear the dipstick tube. And it actually ends up working in our favor to provide a little bit of additional clearance to get in and tighten the dipstick down as Dan's installing all of this. So beyond that, the billet collector is welded up nicely. Everything looks really cool. But let's go ahead and take a look at what they look like in the car, and then let's talk about the next steps for these headers. So with the headers in the car now, we can kind of get a look at how everything has shaped up, and we'll talk about what's next to come with them. So driver's side right here looks very nice, very happy with it. And there's still clearance to be able to get the valve covers off easily and access all the spark plugs reasonably easily, tighten all the fasteners down, all of that. It is the same story over here on the passenger side. And I don't have the dipstick in right now, but the dipstick sits kind of in this pocket here. And same story. Easy to get to all of the fasteners, easy as could be to get to all of the spark plugs and all of that. But the headers are not done yet. And you may be asking yourself, well, what could possibly remain to knock out on them? And there is a big modification that needs to be done on both of the headers. Now, as you're welding any headers or manifolds or things like that together, where you have kind of complex geometry and shapes and bends and things along those lines, it is not uncommon to have the headers move and to have things pull and not end up in the spot that you initially fabricated them in. And that is the situation that I found myself in with these headers. Now, I kind of expected this to happen, so I'm not heartbroken about it, and neither is Dan, as I have a good solution to be able to fix this. But if we look right here, if I zoom you guys in, if I rotate this turbine housing down, you can see this edge right here of the flange does not line up to the turbine housing. If I rotate it down again, it almost does, almost wants to, but it's off by that little bit. Now it is close, but it will not work without having to shove the turbo over and maybe get it to click down in place and then hope that I could fiddle my way to getting the clamp on. And that just is not the correct way for it to be. And over on the passenger side, it's the same story, or a similar one at least. So again, I'll zoom you guys in, and this one might be a little bit more difficult to see, but we are not aligned as we need to be right there. So what I need to do on both of these headers is to come in and cut off the elbow section right here from the weld on the end of the collector where my middle finger is. I'll cut that seam and refit these elbow pieces, and I think that will be a reasonable solution, or it's the best solution that I can think of for it, aside from just trying to muscle things into place, which is not the correct thing to do just in general, let alone when you're in a fab shop and you run a fab shop that specializes in building parts like this. So we are not going to finish these headers in this episode for a couple of reasons. The first of which is I need to get new argon bottles. And while that normally would not be kind of the holdup on finishing a project like this, in this instance it is because of the second reason. So if we look down, I am wearing my I'm sick uniform, and the reason for that is because I am sick. Now, a couple days ago, I came down with a sore throat, had flu-like symptoms, kind of felt like garbage. Those kind of subsided and started to wane a little bit. And then the real interesting symptoms started coming up. If you look at my hand right here, and you see all of those marks on it, if you look at my middle finger and see like blood blisters essentially, on my left hand, it doesn't have as much. You can see them on my thumb palm right there, some on my pads underneath of my fingers there, and some there. I am one of the privileged adults to have came down with hand, foot, and mouth disease. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's a disease that kids usually get, lasts 7 to 10 days from what I have read, and makes you feel like trash for a little bit, and then develop all of these lovely marks all over your hands, your feet, your face, mouth, have one on my forehead, a couple on my chin, and my tongue had some nice ulcers on it for a couple of days that made it pretty interesting to eat. So in addition to kind of looking ugly, my hands hurt, they're itchy, and I have similar rashes and blisters all over my feet. And I'm not trying to make excuses or be gross or anything like that, but rather offer kind of the reality for this. And the reality is, I can't walk around all that well right now. I can't grip things because my hands hurt, and I'm not going to try to muscle through and do subpar work on a project like this and make myself feel more miserable in the process. So I've talked to Dan about it. He's well aware of the situation, and I'll get back to it when I can get back to it. But I don't know exactly when that is going to be. So I didn't want to leave this video unfinished or try to muscle through, like I said, make myself miserable, do subpar work, and showcase that for the world to see. So this is where we are going to end off for this episode. And by the time that this comes out, you guys are watching it, hopefully I will have made it through the lovely HFMD process. But we'll just have to wait and see how that goes in the next few days. So with that being said, this is where we are going to wrap up for this episode. So let's go ahead and do just that. So thank you guys, as always, for coming along on all of these different journeys, all of these different adventures with me. These are the nicest V8 headers that I have made to date. I don't do a whole lot of V8 work, so this might hold that crown for quite a period of time. But I could not be happier with the way that these came out. And we'll do some comparisons between the new headers versus the old, kind of weights and aesthetics and things along those lines. But like I said, not in this episode. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed the series so far. Hopefully that you've learned some things, or at least enjoyed watching the process of these come together. And like I said, we still have a little bit more work to do on them, which we will get accomplished in the next episode. So with all of that being said, that will be about the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and check out the website for manifolds, for merch, and all things good that way. A new apparel and accessory line is very close. It's just on the horizon. I have a couple of little things need to wrap up with it, and maybe it will be announced by the time the next episode comes out. Hopefully that's the case, but in any case, stay tuned on here and on my social media channels to see what exactly that is and when exactly it will be released. But with all of that being said, that'll be the end of this one, and I will see you guys in the next episode.